In this video, I'm going to show you how you can predict the number of visits that your website is going to get if you're running campaigns on different channels. We are going to be using multilinear regression, as we are going to have one dependent variable, which is going to be the one that we want to predict. And that is going to be the number of visits. And then we will have 5 different independent variables that we are going to see how much they contribute to the daily visits of our website. If you are interested in tech and AI, definitely subscribe down below. I post every single week. All right, let's get started. The first thing is that we are going to have a look at the data set that we are going to be working with. Our data set contains 7 different columns. The first one is date. Then we have the number of visits on our website. Then we have Google campaign, Facebook campaign, Twitter campaign, TikTok campaign, and Instagram campaign. Now you can see that there are ones and zeros in these columns. And the 1 basically means that the campaign was run on that specific day. And 0 means that the campaign was not run on this specific day. Additionally, each campaign was run just for 50 days. And then another campaign immediately started right after that. Now, if you scroll down, we can see that the first one was Google campaign that was run for 50 days. And if we scroll down, we can see that the Google campaign is ending here on the 19th of February. And then immediately on the day after, the Facebook campaign was started and run for additional 50 days once again. If we scroll down, we can see the same here. The Facebook campaign ended on the 9th of April 2020. And immediately the day after, the Twitter campaign started. If you want to create a dataset like this, you just simply want to run one campaign for the same amount of days that you run the next campaign. So in that case, you are going to be comparing the number of visits for Google campaign in the same period as the other campaigns. So in our case, that's 50 days for Google campaign, 50 days for Facebook campaign, 50 days for Twitter campaign, and so forth. The second thing you want to make sure is that you never have 2 campaigns run on the same day. So as you can see in one row, we never have 2 ones. And that is simply because if we were to run a Facebook campaign at the same time as a Google campaign and we would have one here, we would not know which one was contributing the most to the number of visits. So just make sure that you run the campaigns independently, because that's one assumption that has to be met with multiple regression. Now, you don't have to do it for 50 days. You can just run the campaigns for 7 days. Most of the times 2 weeks is well enough. Alright, so the first step is actually to upload our dataset to Noteable. You will need to create a project. So you can create your project here, click on project, give it a name, choose the space, and then you create. As you can see, I already have a project created, so mine is called ChatGPT test. I'm then going to click on the upload button, and I have my dataset right here in Excel format, and I'm going to drag and drop it here. You can see it's been uploaded. You can close this, and then what you want to do is click on the 3 dots, and you want to copy the path. This is important because we are going to use the path in our prompt in ChatGPT. All right, inside ChatGPT, what you have to do is to go to GPT-4, plugins. We are going to be using Noteable plugin that lets you run Python directly inside ChatGPT using simple prompts. I have a whole playlist with different scenarios, how you can analyze data in terms of segmentation, sales, marketing, targeting, and much more. I'm gonna link it down below. All right, and right now we are going to write our prompt. So the prompt looks like this. Use the dataset uploaded to Noteable with the path, and here is where you actually paste the path that you copied from here. Then I'm giving it a little bit more content. So here I'm saying that the dataset contains traffic and whether Google, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram campaigns were running on that specific day. I'm then giving it a problem statement. So I need to know which campaign had the most impact on the number of visits. Perform multilinear regression, include a summary table with p-values and coefficients. Visualize each of the independent variable on the line chart against the number of visits. Plot a fitted line. Now, if this sounds like a lot of information and confusing, it's really not confusing. And I'm going to quickly explain you all the results when we get them. Here we are going to send this. Right now, the Noteable plugin is automatically being used. We don't have to specify that we would like to use the Noteable plugin. It automatically knows it should use it because it's the only plugin that is available in our chat. All right, and we got the first result. So the dataset has been successfully loaded. Here are the first few rows. Here we can see the same dataset that I have shown you previously. And now let's proceed with the multilinear regression analysis. we will use the visits column as the dependent variable and the campaign columns as the independent variables. Here, if you want to know the difference between dependent and independent, dependent variable is basically the variable that you want to predict. So in our case, we want to know and predict the number of visits. And then independent variables are the variables that are somehow contributing to the dependent variable. And we are using the independent variables, putting them together and trying to find out which one is influencing the number of visits and how much. All right, and we immediately also get the results of our multilinear regression analysis. If we scroll down, we have a summary from the results. We can see that the Instagram campaign has the highest coefficient, indicating that it has the most impact on the number of visits. The p-value for the Instagram campaign is also less than 0.05, which means that it is statistically significant. Now, if you look at this table, you simply can look at the coefficients, and this one is basically telling you with one additional day how much traffic we can get if this specific campaign is run. So for example, with Instagram campaign, that one is having the highest coefficient number and is telling us that if we run the Instagram campaign for one additional day, we are going to expect around 3,068 more visits. We then get the p-values here. You want the p-value to be lower than 0.05. Now this is a predefined number. 0.05 is what statisticians use the most. It's basically telling us that with 95% confidence, we can be sure that this campaign is actually predicting the number of visits. And so if the number is lower than 0.05, lower than 5%, we can say that it has a significant impact on the number of visits. Now then, next to it, we also get the intervals. So here we have the 95% confidence interval. Here we can say that, for example, with the Instagram campaign, we can be 95% confident that the campaign, if it's run for one additional day, it's going to bring between 2,770 visits to 3,367 visits. This is a range that is giving us, and is basically telling us that with 95% confidence, we can say that this is going to happen. Now you can see that there are some negative values in the confidence intervals. Basically, that is telling you that you can immediately reject it, then pronounce that this independent variable is not significantly improving the number of visits. The reason why is that the confidence interval cannot include 0. If it includes 0, we don't know with certainty how the slope looks like. We don't know if there is any slope, if it's 0. We don't know if it's negative slope because it includes negative values, and we don't know if it's positive slope. So in that case, we don't know and we can't be sure whether this independent variable is significantly influencing the number of visits. You can also see that directly in p-value. So if you see that the confidence interval is including 0, which in this case it is, you can see that the p-value is actually higher than 0.05, and thus we reject Google campaign. You can also look at the R-squared, it's 0.52, so that's 52%. This number is going from 0 to 1. And basically the R-squared is a statistical measure in regression model that determines the proportion of variance in the dependent variable that can be explained by the independent variable. So in simple terms, the R-squared is telling you how good of a fit your model is. In our case, it's 52%. And that is in the middle, so it could actually be better. Now, also don't forget that this is very simple model because there are so many other variables that are influencing the number of visits. They are not inside this multilinear regression model. But to make it simple, we are saying that in this case, we only run 5 different campaigns on 5 different channels, and one campaign can only be run on one day. And then the Noteable plugin was actually used lastly to generate the visual, so we can see the actual visits versus the predicted visits. So here you can see that we have the Google campaign, and if it was run, there is 1. And if it was not run on that specific day, there's 0. And then on the y-axis, we have the number of visits. In this case, you can see that Google campaign is actually not performing well. So in this specific case, running Google campaign might not be beneficial. If we look at the Facebook campaign, it looks very similar, almost identical to the Google campaign. And actually, if we look at it, we can see that both of these campaigns have been not significant. That means that the p-value is actually above 0.05. In this case, the Google campaign is 0.09 And in Facebook campaign, it's actually almost 0.5. So that's very high. The same is for TikTok campaign, which is 0.4, which is above 0.05 significance level. Now, if we look at Instagram compared to other campaigns, we can see that this trend line is very significant, right? Because we are going from around 4,100 all the way to predicted value of around 6,500. So that is very, very significant. And if we look up, we can actually see that Instagram campaign has a p-value of 0. You can be very sure that Instagram campaign is significant and is a good independent variable that is predicting the number of visits. In fact, with one additional day that Instagram campaign is run, we can say that we are going to increase the number of visits by 3,068. You also get a summary down here. The blue dots represent the actual number of visits and the red line represents the average predicted number of visits from our multilinear regression model for when the campaign was not running, 0, and when it was running, 1. The x-axis represents whether the campaign was running on that specific day, 0, not running, 1, running. And lastly, I'm going to write another prompt. Please add the data labels on the predicted visits so we can see the exact number that is predicted. Now, as you remember, I was just guessing this number here that is around 4,100. Now we can write this so we can have the exact numbers on the visuals so it's easier to read. And just like that, we got the results. So right now we can see the exact predicted numbers on the chart as well. So if we go to Instagram, which was very significant, we can see that if the campaign is not run, we can expect around 4,201 visits per day. But if the campaign is run, we can see that the number goes up to 7,051. All right, if you like this video or if you learned anything new, please give this video a thumbs up. If you're interested in more Noteable videos, definitely subscribe down below. I post every single week. Thank you so much and have a great day.